UW Dialectical and University of Pittsburgh are shrewd, but they can't really hide their duplicity in double talk. I'll give you a few examples. The state of affairs in Pittsburgh and Seattle made clear to me many times through, you know, my family, my peers, just about everyone, organized as they are by a circle of um, promoters of noxious cover stories. Pittsburgh and Seattle made clear that their friendship for me depends on my allowing them to shout down that I was tortured. I was very brutally tortured. And of course, this has a background of media stuff that says I was never tortured because I am not black. And black issues grossly outweigh any concern for the white. And so it's duplicity. It's a prank on the justice system. The police couldn't care less, no matter how egregious it gets, no matter how many other people are affected. It boils down to them saying, ha, 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 ha. So we know that. I mean, we've discussed this, and you can play back the records and scroll up, and you can see it for yourself. I mean, it's so commonplace that it defeats being disturbed by it. But what they say is the dialectic of the collective. See, when you start talking about collectives, you're asking for stereotyping. So I try to avoid that. Demands that the story that they developed, the grossly insidious museum thieving pornography that they made, should be used to compensate them for their time and effort rather than held as evidence to prosecute them for their crime. And somehow they uploaded a tall tale from Carnegie Mellon, who are brilliant uploaders in robotics and stuff. Pentagon, Disney, they work with NASA. They do wild things with cryogenics and hyperspace and astronomy, far out Hubble telescope type things, and teleportation. They've even worked out. Um, you know, freezing rates to turn things amorphous at cryogenic temperatures, and on it goes. They had a incredible two-headed transplant idea, and they tortured me. It's not that anybody cares, but um, somehow in this midst of all that stuff, they came up with some weird, you know, belly button pushing prank about John Lennon, and they just without batting an eyelash, robbed our museums and said because of John Lennon, tortured people, murdered people, raped people because of John Lennon this, John Lennon that, without ever making any connection of the dots at all. They didn't bother at all. So the opposite is true. And so they say, well, then you should remain impoverished because if you receive any reward, we'll kill you. Well, the point is that the one thing I will never do is guarantee anything, but that I will never reward them knowingly. Never. It's ridiculous. They should be shut down and boycotted. That's perfectly obvious. But it doesn't change what my basic sympathies are. I mean, these gobblers have their key on those kinds of sympathies, you know. But my basic sympathies are with the people trying to come to terms with the fossil fuel crisis and build harmonious relations between societies. Show some willingness to err on the side of friendship with people who are always assuming mean things that are evil when maybe they don't. You know, what's the harm in hearing the side? You know, nobody I know knows a thing about Donbass, and apparently it went on for 8 years. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not justifying this crime against the people of the Ukraine. I'm like just one of those Ukrainian mothers crying all the time in disbelief. I can't stand it, you know. But don't make out like the people in Seattle and Pittsburgh who did it to me are better. I mean, that's just silly. That's wrong. You know, even the Russians speak English. How could the fact that they speak English because they see me on the street when I have nowhere to go? I'm just like one of those dogs in those pity videos. Gets hit by a car and people just walk by, just walk by, just walk by. Everybody could see how weird it was that I was deaf. They just walk by. They just walk by. They just walk by. That people say, "Oh, go work on your intersectionalities." You know, black people said, "Oh, you slept with someone who made me jealous." The army says, "Oh, you criticized the war in Vietnam." Just walk by. Just walk by. Just walk by. You know, Pink Floyd says, "Well, we'll use him. He's a funny thing to play with." You know, and they toy with me like the Trumpy-Toon Putinese people do. The Trumpy-Toon Putinese are together on all of this stuff. You know, the poison in the mouth came out of UW Dialectical, not Putin, but it was in line with the whole scenario of might makes right, you know, evasion of human responsibility that is considered to be in commercial. One of the new things we go through. Whoa. I mean, I'm just putting it into perspective. I'm not, I mean, it would be nice if something changed, but I'm not saying I expect it to. Don't expect me to change my tune. I was brutally tortured by these people. Brutally, brutally, brutally tortured by them. Poisoned. My loved ones murdered. My best friend raped. I mean, don't put it like it wasn't organized, because it was. The Postal Union was involved. I mean, people in Congress must surely have known this was going on. And don't tell me that Penis Gabriel didn't talk to Putin. Oliver Stone was kissy like with Putin. You know, it's an oligarchy thing based on the principle of human negligence. People just don't care. And so people who do the, you know, do the census taking, you know, say, what are the odds anybody's going to give her help? You know, whoa. Told him it was the black man was compromised. Oh, wow, the black man was compromised. Oh.